For decades, Tom Hanks has been one of the most familiar faces in Hollywood. His voice, his smile, the calm way he carries himself. People all over the world recognize it instantly. To many fans, he represents something simple and steady. Someone you trust. He played soldiers, astronauts, fathers, teachers, ship captains, and ordinary men caught in extraordinary situations. And over time, something interesting happened. Audiences didn't just watch Tom Hanks on screen. They felt like they knew him. For years, people joked that he was America's dad. The dependable guy. The one actor who seemed to stay away from the chaos and scandals that often follow celebrities. But recently, something changed. At 69, Tom Hanks recorded what he called a final message to fans. He spoke about time. About how life moves forward whether you're ready or not. About how every career eventually reaches a moment where a person has to step back and think about what comes next. For many fans, it sounded like a goodbye. Not necessarily the kind of goodbye that happens overnight, but the kind that signals a big shift. A moment when someone who has spent most of his life in the spotlight begins to slowly walk away from it. What made the moment even more surprising was that people close to him didn't expect it either. Some longtime colleagues were caught off guard when they heard about the message. A few friends reportedly said they had noticed him thinking more about the future in recent years, but they didn't think he would talk about it publicly so soon. Because on the surface, Tom Hanks still seemed active. He was still acting, still producing, still showing up in interviews and public appearances. So why now? Why would someone who has spent nearly 5 decades working at the very top of Hollywood suddenly begin talking about stepping away? To understand that moment, the message, the decision, and what may come next, you have to go all the way back to the beginning. Because the story of Tom Hanks didn't start with fame. It started with a childhood that felt uncertain from the very start. Long before the awards, before the fame, and before millions of people knew his name, Tom Hanks was just a kid trying to find his place in a world that kept changing around him. He was born on July 9, 1956, in Concord, California. His father, Amos Hanks, worked as a cook and later ran restaurants. His mother, Janet Frager, worked in a hospital. On paper, it looked like a normal middle-class family. But things didn't stay stable for long. When Tom was still young, his parents divorced. That single event changed the direction of his childhood almost overnight. After the divorce, the family split apart in a way that left lasting marks on everyone involved. Tom and his siblings didn't grow up in one steady home. Instead, they moved around frequently. Different houses, different cities, different schools. For a child, that kind of constant change can make it difficult to feel settled anywhere. Tom later described himself as a quiet kid who often felt like an outsider. Every time he arrived at a new school, everyone else already had friends, routines, and their own groups. He was the new kid again, and again, and again. By the time he was a teenager, he had already lived in several different places across California. Some kids react to that kind of instability by becoming rebellious. Others become withdrawn. Tom Hanks did something different. He became observant. Because he spent so much time feeling like he didn't quite belong, he started paying close attention to people around him. The way they talked, the way they behaved, the way they reacted to situations. Without realizing it, he was developing a skill that would later become the foundation of his acting. Watching people. Learning how they move through the world. At school, he wasn't the most popular student. He wasn't the class clown either. In fact, many classmates later said he seemed pretty ordinary at first glance. But there was one place where things felt different. The school theater. When Tom first stepped into the world of acting during high school, something clicked almost immediately. For the first time, he found a space where being someone else was not only accepted, it was encouraged. On stage, the shy kid who had spent years trying to fit in suddenly had a purpose. He could step into different characters, different personalities, different lives. And when people watched him perform, something surprising happened. They paid attention. For a kid who had spent much of his childhood feeling invisible, that experience mattered. It gave him confidence. Not the loud, showy kind of confidence, but a quiet belief that maybe he had found something he was good at. After finishing high school, Tom enrolled at Chabot College before eventually transferring to California State University, Sacramento. But his real education didn't come from textbooks. It came from the stage. He spent hours performing in local theater productions, learning how to work with directors, and understanding the rhythm of live performance. During those early years, he wasn't thinking about movie stardom. Hollywood felt far away. Acting, at that point, was simply something he loved doing. But the path ahead wasn't going to be smooth. Because after those early theater experiences, Tom Hanks would soon discover something that many young actors eventually face. Loving acting and making a living from it are two very different things. When people look at the career of Tom Hanks today, it can feel like success was inevitable. 2 Academy Awards, dozens of major films, one of the most recognizable voices and faces in the world. But the truth is, the early years looked nothing like that. In the late 1970s, Tom made a bold decision that changed his life. Instead of finishing a traditional college path, he dropped out and committed fully to acting. It was a risky move. At the time, he didn't have money, connections, or any guarantee that things would work out. What he had was determination. He joined a theater company called the Great Lakes Theater Festival in Cleveland. The pay wasn't glamorous. In fact, it was barely enough to get by. Actors in those kinds of companies often did everything themselves. They performed on stage, helped build sets, cleaned costumes, and sometimes even assisted with lighting or props. It was long hours and small paychecks. But it was also a training ground. For Tom Hanks, those years were about learning the craft the hard way. Night after night, he performed classic plays and smaller productions in front of live audiences. Some nights the theaters were full. Other nights there were empty seats scattered across the room. That's the reality of theater work. During this time, he also met someone who would become a major part of his life, actress Samantha Lewis. The two eventually married, and before long they were starting a family together. Suddenly, the dream of becoming an actor wasn't just about personal passion anymore. It became a responsibility. He had to provide for a family. That pressure pushed him to try something bigger. Hollywood. Like thousands of young actors before him, Tom packed his bags and headed to Los Angeles with the hope of finding work in television and film. The early days there were tough. Auditions came and went. Many of them led nowhere. Casting directors often didn't know what to do with him. He didn't look like the typical leading man of that era. He wasn't the tough action hero type, and he didn't fit neatly into other categories either. But one thing slowly started working in his favor: his natural likability. When Tom Hanks walked into a room, people noticed something about him that felt genuine. That quality eventually helped him land small television roles, guest appearances, minor characters. Nothing huge yet. Then, in the early 1980s, he finally got a bigger opportunity. A television sitcom called Bosom Buddies. The show had a strange and unusual premise. 2 young men disguise themselves as women so they can live in an affordable apartment building that only allows female tenants. It was silly, a little chaotic, but it gave Tom Hanks something extremely valuable: screen time. For 2 seasons, audiences began to notice him. His energy, his comedic timing, the way he could make even ridiculous situations feel entertaining. Even though the show didn't become a long-running hit, it opened doors. Casting directors started seeing him as someone who could carry comedic roles. That led to one of his earliest film opportunities. In 1984, he starred in the movie Splash, directed by Ron Howard. The film told the story of a man who falls in love with a mermaid, played by Daryl Hannah. It sounds strange on paper, but the movie worked. Audiences loved it. And suddenly, Tom Hanks wasn't just a struggling actor anymore. He was a rising star in Hollywood. But the climb to the very top was still just beginning. After the success of Splash, things began to change for Tom Hanks. Before that movie, he had mostly been known as a funny television actor, someone who could carry a sitcom or appear in light comedies. But Splash showed Hollywood something else. It showed that audiences liked watching him on the big screen. And once Hollywood notices something like that, opportunities start appearing. Throughout the mid-1980s, Tom Hanks became a familiar face in a series of comedy films. Movies like Bachelor Party and The Money Pit kept him busy. They weren't necessarily serious films, but they allowed him to sharpen his timing and develop a style that audiences enjoyed. He had a certain kind of energy on screen, not the polished, glamorous energy of a traditional movie star. Instead, he often played regular guys. Characters who made mistakes, stumbled through situations, and reacted in ways that felt real. That quality made people relate to him. Then came the movie that changed everything. In 1988, Tom Hanks starred in Big. The story was simple but clever. A young boy makes a wish to be grown up, and suddenly wakes up inside the body of an adult. What followed was a performance that surprised almost everyone. Tom Hanks didn't just act like a man pretending to be a kid. He moved, spoke, and reacted with the awkward curiosity of a child experiencing adulthood for the first time. Audiences loved it. Critics loved it. And for the first time in his career, Tom Hanks received an Academy Award nomination. Hollywood now saw him differently. He wasn't just a comedy actor anymore. He was a serious performer. The next few years would push that reputation even further. During the early 1990s, Tom Hanks began choosing roles that were deeper, more emotional, and sometimes physically demanding. One of the most important moments came in 1993 with Philadelphia. The film told the story of a lawyer who is fired from his firm after they discover he has AIDS. At the time, the subject was still controversial and rarely discussed openly in mainstream films. Many actors might have avoided the role. Tom Hanks didn't. He lost a significant amount of weight for the part and delivered a quiet, powerful performance. When the film was released, critics praised his work. He won the Academy Award for Best Actor. And then something even more unusual happened the very next year. In 1994, he starred in Forrest Gump. The story followed a simple man from Alabama whose life somehow intersects with many major events in American history. It was a strange idea for a movie, but Tom Hanks made the character unforgettable. The voice, the gentle personality, the quiet honesty of the character. Audiences connected with it in a way few people expected. The movie became a massive success, and Tom Hanks won his second Academy Award in a row. Only a few actors in history had ever achieved that. By the mid-1990s, he had reached the very top of Hollywood, but his biggest and most demanding roles were still ahead. In 1998, he starred in Saving Private Ryan, directed by Steven Spielberg. The film placed him in the role of Captain John Miller, leading a group of soldiers through the brutal realities of World War II. The opening scenes of the film shocked audiences with their raw realism, and Tom Hanks played the role with a kind of quiet leadership that made the character believable. Around the same time, he also appeared in the romantic comedy You've Got Mail alongside Meg Ryan, showing once again that he could move between genres easily. Then in 2000, he took on one of the most physically demanding roles of his career. In Cast Away, Tom Hanks played a man stranded alone on a deserted island after a plane crash. For much of the film, he was the only person on screen. He lost a dramatic amount of weight to show the passage of time and spent months filming in isolation. The performance earned him another Academy Award nomination. By that point, Tom Hanks wasn't just a star anymore. He had become one of the most respected actors in the world. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, something interesting had happened to Tom Hanks. He wasn't just admired for his acting. People genuinely liked him. In Hollywood, that isn't always common. Many actors build careers around mystery or controversy. Some become famous for dramatic headlines or public feuds. Tom Hanks seemed to avoid all of that. Journalists often described him as approachable, friendly, calm, the kind of celebrity who would stop and talk with crew members or fans without making it feel like a performance. Over time, the public began giving him a nickname, America's Dad. It wasn't something he asked for. It simply grew out of the way people saw him. Part of that image came from his personal life. In 1988, he married actress Rita Wilson. Their relationship quickly became one of the most stable marriages in Hollywood. While celebrity relationships often appear and disappear quickly, Tom and Rita built something that lasted. They raised children together and stayed mostly away from the constant drama that follows many famous couples. Friends who visited their home often described it as surprisingly normal. Family dinners, music playing in the background, simple conversations. Tom Hanks has always seemed comfortable living a quieter life when cameras are not around. But even someone with that kind of public image still feels pressure. Because when millions of people believe you represent something good, there's an expectation that you will never break that image. For years, Tom Hanks carried that reputation carefully. He avoided reckless behavior. stayed professional on film sets, treated co-workers with respect. But living under that kind of reputation can also be exhausting. Every move gets watched. Every interview gets analyzed. Every public appearance gets judged. And the longer someone stays famous, the harder it becomes to live like a normal person. Still, Tom Hanks managed to maintain that image for decades, even as Hollywood continued changing around him. Success in Hollywood often hides something people rarely see: the physical and emotional toll of decades spent working constantly. For Tom Hanks, that reality began to show in small ways over time. Film productions can be demanding. Long shooting schedules, travel across multiple countries, months spent away from home. For younger actors, the pace can feel exciting. But as the years pass, it becomes harder on the body. In 2013, Tom Hanks publicly revealed something that surprised many fans. He had been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. He explained that doctors had warned him for years that his blood sugar levels were rising. Part of the issue came from the dramatic weight changes he went through for certain roles. For films like Cast Away, he had pushed his body to extreme limits. At the time, he said those choices may have played a role in the health problems he later developed. Even after the diagnosis, he continued working. But people close to him began noticing subtle changes. He became more careful with his schedule, more selective about roles, and more focused on spending time with family. The truth is, long careers often come with hidden costs. Years of stress, years of travel, years of constantly being in the public eye. For Tom Hanks, those quiet realities slowly began shaping the way he thought about the future. The film industry that helped make Tom Hanks famous is not the same industry that exists today. Hollywood has changed dramatically over the last 2 decades. In the 1990s, movie studios often built entire films around major actors. Stars carried projects. Their names alone could bring audiences into theaters. But in recent years, the industry has shifted. Massive franchises, superhero universes, streaming platforms, younger actors with huge social media followings. The focus of Hollywood has moved in new directions. For veteran actors like Tom Hanks, that change created a different kind of challenge. The roles available to older actors became more limited. Leading roles in large studio films became rarer. Instead, many established performers began moving towards smaller projects, streaming productions, or producing their own content. Tom Hanks adapted better than most. He continued appearing in films like Sully, where he played airline captain Chesley Sullenberger, and later in A Man Called Otto. These roles leaned into something audiences already felt about him: the wise older figure, a man reflecting on life, someone who has seen enough years to understand loss, patience, and change. But behind the scenes, time was continuing to move forward. And at 69, Tom Hanks began thinking seriously about something he had spent most of his life avoiding. What comes after Hollywood? By the time Tom Hanks reached his late 60s, he had already spent nearly 50 years working in the film industry. Most actors never get anywhere close to that kind of longevity. Film sets had been part of his life for decades. Early mornings, long nights, traveling from one country to another for months at a time, living inside characters and stories for most of the year. For a long time, that pace felt normal to him. But as the years passed, the rhythm started to change. Friends noticed that Tom had begun talking differently about work. Not in a dramatic way. Not like someone who was unhappy, but like someone who was slowly looking at life from a different angle. Instead of asking, "What's the next big role?" he started asking something else. "How much time do I really want to spend doing this?" For many actors, the idea of stepping away from the spotlight is frightening. Their identity becomes tied to the work, to the applause, to the constant movement. But Tom Hanks had something many celebrities struggle to maintain: a life outside Hollywood. His marriage to Rita Wilson had lasted for decades. Their home life was grounded in family routines that didn't revolve around movie premieres. As their children grew older and started their own lives, Tom began noticing something simple but powerful. Time was moving faster. There were grandchildren now, family gatherings, quiet mornings that felt more meaningful than airport terminals or film trailers. Some of his closest friends say that the first hints of a big decision appeared during private conversations a few years earlier. He would talk about how different the industry felt compared to when he first arrived in Hollywood. Back then, everything had been about chasing opportunity. Now the question was different. What do you do after you've already done almost everything? 2 Academy Awards. Dozens of iconic roles. Collaborations with legendary directors like Steven Spielberg. Characters that became part of popular culture. At a certain point, Tom began feeling that the pressure to keep going might not make sense anymore. Not because he had lost his love for acting, but because he had started thinking about balance. The moment that surprised people close to him reportedly came during a quiet conversation about future projects. Someone asked him what kind of film he wanted to make next. Instead of naming a script or a director, Tom said something that caught everyone off guard. He said he had been thinking about slowing down in a serious way. Not just taking a break. Actually stepping away from the pace that had defined his life for half a century. Some people in the room thought he was joking. Others assumed he meant a short pause. But the more he talked, the clearer it became that this was something he had been thinking about for a long time. He wasn't angry with Hollywood. He wasn't walking away because of one bad experience. It was something quieter than that. He had reached a point where continuing the same routine no longer felt necessary. And eventually, that thinking led him to record a message that fans around the world would soon hear. When Tom Hanks finally recorded what he described as his message to fans, it didn't happen inside a giant studio or a major press event. It was simple. The tone was calm. Anyone who has listened to Tom Hanks speak over the years knows that his voice carries a certain warmth. The same steady voice audiences heard in films like Forrest Gump and Cast Away. In the message, he didn't make a dramatic announcement about quitting acting forever. Instead, he spoke in the kind of thoughtful way that made people listen closely. He talked about how lucky he had been. About the audiences who watched his films. About the directors, writers, and crew members who spent years working beside him. He mentioned how strange it feels to look back on a career that started so long ago, when he was just a young actor trying to survive in small theater productions. He said something else that stood out. He said that every career eventually reaches a moment where a person has to decide how much more of the road they want to travel. The words sounded peaceful. Not sad. Not dramatic. Just honest. For many fans, the message felt like the beginning of a goodbye. Not the sudden kind, but the slow kind that happens when someone starts closing one chapter of their life and preparing for the next. The reaction online was immediate. Fans began sharing their favorite memories of Tom Hanks films. Scenes from Saving Private Ryan. Moments from Big. Lines from Forrest Gump that people had been quoting for nearly 30 years. Many viewers said the same thing. It felt strange imagining Hollywood without Tom Hanks playing new characters. But others understood what he meant. After nearly 5 decades in front of the camera, maybe stepping back wasn't a loss. Maybe it was simply the next stage of a very long journey. And if Tom Hanks really is beginning to say goodbye to the career that made him famous, he leaves behind something few actors ever achieve. A body of work that spans generations. Stories that people continue watching long after the credits roll. And a reputation that, for many fans, never stopped feeling genuine.